Yes, Mojo. Really impressed. She's a sweetheart.
Next Tuesday, Cesar Milan's leader of the pack at 8:30 on Pearl. Up shortly in our programme lineup, stay with us for Pearl Spectacular, 6 feet under the savannah. Every Monday to Thursday, starting next week, the following, Season 2, on Pearl's Midnight Drama. Next on In Vino Veritas, the journey continues at Bordeaux and Burgundy. Also, what to do with your leftover wine. And the wines to go with innovative Chinese cuisine. Dall'Oyor Paris since 1682 presents In Vino Veritas at 9:30 on Pearl.
要極致年輕，一支精華做夠。Clarence 雙精華將水油精華合二為一，激活極致年輕，肌膚回復光澤，重塑緊緻，減淡皺紋。Clarence 全球No.1富活雙精華。
Oh my gosh! Look at that!
Is there anything we can do?
The monsoon is running several weeks ahead of schedule, and people likely were not prepared.
Water gets up over the defense and does its damage.
Wednesday, worst weather ever at 9:30 on Pearl. Babies are unpredictable,
Wait.
but their parents think they know them best.
Go!
But do they really?
Do she like pizza? She likes a patch on her eye.
Sunday, Bet on Your Baby, Season 2 at 8:35 on Pearl. The time now is 9:32. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
Good evening. The government has promised to submit a report to Beijing to reflect the latest situation in Hong Kong. In a dialogue with the representatives of the Federation of Students, Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam also said she respects the students for their ideals and perseverance in pursuing democracy. Many people flocked to Occupy zones in Mong Kok and Admiralty this evening, some to watch the meeting on TV. Activists have vowed to keep up their occupation despite court notices for them to clear out. In South Africa, Paralympic track star Oscar Pistorius has been sentenced to 5 years in jail for killing his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. Last month, the 27-year-old was convicted of culpable homicide but cleared of murder. Marketplace is in 1 hour.
Earth Live was co-sponsored by Peonia Diamond.
We might think the East African savanna holds no secrets for us. What could its vast stretches of sun-drenched plain possibly conceal? Yet, under the rocks, under the dry grass and acacia roots, lies a secret world. A silent world of impenetrable darkness. The sun rises over the plain, where day follows night, and air and light flow freely. Above it, only sky. But the most mysterious creatures in the savannah are hidden underground. Sight is useless here. The naked mole rat has adapted to the darkness. Its tiny eyes sense only variations in light intensity. Its ears have no auricle. And since the sun doesn't shine below ground, its skin is not pigmented, making it partially transparent. The rodent keeps warm in this chilly world by huddling together with its fellows. On the surface, a herd of 300 buffaloes has almost stripped the ground in this part of the savannah. The naked mole rat has a keen sense of smell and picks up the slightest vibrations in the ground. The sentry has extremely sensitive hairs on its body, and its eyes detect changes in air pressure, allowing it to see the outside world. The buffaloes have decided to set off for new pastures. With 200 tons of buffalo trampling over the ceiling, the naked mole rat's metropolis begins to tremble. The movement of the herd leaves chaos in its wake. There's a crisis. The mole rat queen has been left stranded. The excavators set to work. They have to dig away the debris and rescue the monarch. The matriarch cannot survive without the help of her people. She's frantic, paralyzed by stress. Naked mole rats are the only mammals who organize their lives around a queen, like ants or termites. Apart from one or two fertile males, they're all sterile workers, diggers, and a few bodyguards. The queen is the only breeder. She is much larger than the others. At the start of her reign, she secreted special hormones, triggering a process that increased the space between her vertebrae. The workers shift the debris backwards with all the efficiency of miniature backhoes. The earthquake has left a barrier in front of the gallery leading to the royal chamber. A crew struggles to break through. Fortunately, the tunnel is still intact behind the roof fall. Finally, the queen's subjects reach their monarch. The stampeding buffaloes kicked aside the stones that scorpions shelter under, leaving them exposed to their deadliest enemy, light. Scorpions are only at ease in the shade. Their dens are holes in the ground. They are photophobic. In other words, the sunlight distresses them. A panicking red claw scorpion vainly tries to dig a hole in the rock-hard ground. The blazing sun is exhausting this stray arachnid. If it doesn't find shade, the light will disorientate it completely. The sun hurts all its eyes, the pair at the front of its body and the 3 pairs on its sides. Finally, the scorpion catches sight of a shady spot that might save it. But there is no shelter. The sun has turned. The arachnid must continue its search. Shade is a rare luxury. The scorpion has no choice. It has to fight a luckier animal for a place out of the sun. Now, the evicted tenant must find another haven. It takes its anger out on a burrowing scorpion, a species known for its ability to dig very deep holes. The red claw scorpion's sting plunges deep into the burrowing scorpion's body. It's now only a matter of time before the venom paralyzes the victim. The buffaloes have caused an earthquake. The naked mole rats and scorpions are not the only victims of the disaster. The ruminant's hooves damaged the base of a termite mound. The structure is still stable, but sunlight is entering the galleries, and termites are lucifagous. Like scorpions, they shun light. The workers are getting busy. They rebuild the walls with a material made up of chewed cellulose, earth, saliva, and excrement. Meanwhile, the soldiers remain on a war footing. They may have to prevent ants or other creatures from invading the colony through the gaping holes. Every individual knows their place in termite society. The workers labor and the soldiers protect. A king fertilizes the queen populates the colony. If the queen dies, the colony won't survive more than 2 months. Set in the network of chambers where the termites cultivate fungus, the royal lodge has been ripped open. The sovereign is vulnerable, exposed to danger. There's a lot of work to be done. The floors the fungus grows on must be rebuilt. The termites tend patiently to their crops on a bed of their own excrement. The queen urgently needs to be rehoused in a lodge suited to her rank. Her body is basically an enormous, distended uterus processing the 2,000 eggs she lays every day. Having become a breeding plant to reproduce her species, she cannot move. But she can't stay where she is either. The king, a sort of diminished parasite who's also limited to purely sexual functions, cannot help. The queen is in danger, at the mercy of predators. To get her to safety, the workers have to lift her up and carry her to a less damaged lodge. Once the queen is settled, they simply wall her up.
Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Patrick. Teresa can't come to the phone right now.
Red John is steps ahead.
Exactly how much does Jane know?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
BMWI presents The Mentalist Season 6 at 10:35 on Pearl.
一款面膜點會夠？你需要18款面膜，切合不同肌膚需要。Fanco 3D 修護滋養精華面膜，膠原緊緻，深潤去紋。Fanco 面膜專家。
Planning a trip has never been easier. Expedia has 400 airlines and over 320,000 hotels for you to freely choose from. Look out for irresistible offers to Taiwan, Japan, and the USA. Download the Expedia app or go to expedia.com.hk, the world-leading travel website.
Hello, I'm Roby.
全球超人氣嘅機械人 Roby 嚟咗香港啦，開電視啊
OK。
每期都有不同安裝零件，組合超簡單。Roby 周刊創刊號特價49蚊，便利店、書店熱賣中。
Union Pay, your way. Come paint the night in a whole new light at Hong Kong Disneyland.
Brand new album featuring classical crossover favorites, popular hits, and originals. Jackie Evancho, Awakening, available at Hong Kong Records.
It's obvious which family is better prepared. Protect yourself from mosquito bites while outdoors. Wear light-colored and long-sleeve clothing. Apply mosquito repellent and avoid staying in scrubby areas. Practice good personal protection against mosquito bites to prevent mosquito-borne infections, such as dengue fever and Japanese encephalitis.
Mr. Lincoln, vampires are real.
Ladies and gentlemen,
dinner is served.
He was not just a great American president. He fought the undead.
Mr. Lincoln, you are full of surprises.
Saturday, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, on Pearl's Saturday Night Scares.
established. A male can dominate other mole rats by subjecting them to stress. This involves baring his incisors and biting viciously. The winner, who is generally the biggest rodent, secretes greater quantities of testosterone and becomes the queen's favorite. Once he has proved his superiority, the alpha male stops fighting and watches as his social inferiors get back to work. Before they ruined the habitats of the naked mole rats, scorpions, and termites, the herd of buffaloes helped another kind of underground inhabitant to prosper. Dung beetles live in holes, only leaving them to gather the raw material that serves as both their food source and construction material, dung. Although they prefer the dung of leaf eaters to that of grass eaters, the 300 buffaloes turned the savanna into a land of plenty for the beetles. Here is the dish of the day, rich in tasty juice, half-digested fibers, and bacteria that produce just the right degree of fermentation. The dung beetle uses its shovel-shaped head, mandibles, and powerful arms to shape the dung into balls that it can roll back to its hole. Another beetle has already formed a dung ball. It's a tempting prospect for a passing thief, but there's little competition given the current surplus of food. Each insect heads off home with its own haul, always in a straight line, whatever stands in the way. The dung beetle is the strongest insect in the world. It can shift 1,141 times its own weight. An English scientist found that out by attaching a container to a dung beetle's back and filling it with water until the Herculean coleopteran could no longer move. Dung beetles lay their eggs in dung. When the larvae hatch, they don't have far to go to find the bacteria they feed on. Safe in her new lodge, the queen of the termites will soon be able to start laying again. Workers feed and clean her. The king is constantly at her side, waiting, huddled against the giant uterus, to step in whenever the termite production pump needs priming. This larva survived the destruction of the nursery. Watched by the soldiers, life is again the usual perfectly choreographed ballet. Nurses go about their duties in the depths of the city, while builders labor on its edges. The termites collect their main construction material, cellulose, from the boles of neighboring trees. They reach them through tunnels that can also be used to evacuate the termite mound in an emergency. After just a few hours, the mound is a fortress again, surrounded by impenetrable walls. The agama is quite a common lizard. This one has spent the night in her hole. Now it's time to warm her body in the sun. The lamprophis is usually fond of lizards. It enjoys them cold or warmed up, but doesn't eat during the mating season. So the young female agama is quite safe, but in the savannah, you should never count on your neighbor not being hungry. The lizard plays dead. As the predator examines the corpse, it suddenly comes to life and scuttles away. Deep down in a hole, the Lamprophis has sensed the only thing that interests him, a female. He simply follows the trail of pheromones wafted through the tunnels. The female is receptive. The two reptiles begin to intertwine. With snakes, that means knotting together until it is impossible to tell one body from the other. Somewhere in the serpentine tangle, the male's penis enters the female's cloaca. The male's tongue picks up the pheromones the female is emitting, telling him what state she's in. The two reptiles can remain coupled for several hours. Afterwards, they stay there in the hole, only emerging when night falls. Time passes in the changeless equatorial savanna. The length of the day never varies, always lasting as long as the night. The single season here continues all year round. 6 months have gone by. The female Lamprophis chose a slightly damp hole to settle in and laid 10 eggs or so there. The newborn snakes immediately set out to explore their surroundings. They slither instinctively through the tunnels in search of the exit. But the world is a big place when you've just been born and belong to a non-venomous species. The snake hesitates, but finally decides to inspect the outside world. Banded mongooses, snakes' worst enemies, are enjoying their favorite part of the day. They form a modern family where 2 or 3 dominant females raise many children. Uncles and aunts help to bring up the youngest. Mongooses are frequently snatched by eagles and only a quarter of their babies survive, so they have to remain constantly on the alert, looking around for any danger. Mongooses are fairly nomadic by nature and don't bother digging holes. They move into dens deserted by other animals or stay in abandoned termite mounds. They need enough space to accommodate a very large family, a place where the little ones can dig and explore. Scrabbling away, a baby uncovers a buried treasure, a delicious beetle.
Every Monday to Thursday, starting next week. The following, Season 2, on Pearl's Midnight Drama.
You and I got a lot in common.
Really? You're sitting there tied to a chair, and I'm standing here with a gun in my hand.
You don't do this job, Hunter's a dead man.
You're going after the SAS.
Who's your worst nightmare? They're off. This all ends today.
When does the other?
Son.
Friday, Orange to Watch Company presents Killer Elite on Pearl's Friday Attractions.
Gotta run. Gotta run. Gotta run. Gotta run.
Union Pay, your way.
要極致年輕，一支精華就夠。Clarence 雙精華將水油精華合二為一，激活極致年輕，肌膚回復光澤，重塑緊緻，減淡皺紋。Clarence 全球No.1復活雙精華。
頭髮夠 volume， 令人更型。Salon Pro 一撳就染得，唔單止冇味，染過嘅頭髮會變得堅韌，唔易斷。Salon Pro One Push Cream 染髮變護髮，頭髮夠 volume 更型。
Get ready for a new page in motorsport history. Welcome to Asia's most legendary race. This November, experience the Sun City Group 61st Macau Grand Prix.
Blue Planet GMT. Doxa since 1889.
When visiting a swimming pool, always be aware of safety and hygiene. Adults should take good care of children at all times. Don't run or dive into the pool, as doing so is very dangerous. If you feel unwell, stop swimming and go to the washroom immediately. Don't defecate or vomit in the pool water. Let's keep the pool safe and clean. Enjoy your swim.
It's the annual competition of originality, creativity, determination.
It represents where I want to be as a chef.
And flavor.
Simply amazing.
Start believing in yourself a little bit more.
Thursday and Friday, MasterChef, Season 4, at 8:30 on Pearl.
Lights, balance. Lettuce Robothon. Every move was a man.
Saturday, Britain's Got Talent, at 8:30 on Pearl.
In the savannah, second-hand dens are in great demand. Warthogs set up home in lairs originally dug by an unobtrusive, nomadic, and usually invisible occupant, the aardvark. Warthogs are herbivorous rather than omnivorous. They graze on grass and use the upper edge of their snouts to dig up bulbs and roots. When they travel, generally as a herd, warthogs always seem to be on urgent, vital business. Each family member raises his or her tail in a salute to the other members of the group. Warthogs generally feed outside their lair, but occasionally they bring back a few tubers or a large root. When they do, they have to reverse into their home. These mongooses are looking lively as they leave their den. That is because it's time for the last meal of the day. Insects are their favorite dish, but they'll willingly settle for an egg, mouse, young snake, or piece of fruit. Sometimes a chunk of meat discarded by a lion will do. One of the youngest in the litter has left his dessert out in the open. It would be a pity to waste such a delicious scolopendra, even if the others do want to muscle in. Mongooses return to the underworld for the night. It's time for a last feed for one or two infants that still refuse to be weaned. Then they all settle down to sleep 6 feet under the savannah. The naked mole rats never leave their tunnels to feed. They dig through the earth to find the roots and tubers they delight in. A few sweet potatoes fallen from the roof provide a feast for the entire colony. The hungry animals burrow into them as if they were digging a section of tunnel. Most of the skin remains intact as they penetrate the tuber and eat it from inside. The tunneling instinct is powerful indeed. The mole rat disappears into his dinner. In this world where no light shines, what mysterious sense tells the mole rats it's time for bed when the moon rises? The remains of their hollowed-out meal will be there for breakfast, but for now, the entire colony is drifting off to sleep. Like the warthogs, the porcupines take over dens that aardvarks have so ably dug in the hard, stony ground. The animal marks out its territory around the lair, making it focus of his sensory world. In the dead of night, he heads off to forage for the tastiest grasses and plants. When he has the chance, he rounds off his meal with a few bones already crushed by hyenas, gnawing at the fragments to absorb their calcium and mineral salts. Then he slips back into his hole before the moon goes down. A giant lurks in the last shadows of the night. A rock python, the largest snake in Africa, hauls its huge body, 4 meters long and 70 kilos in weight, from its hole in a crevice in the ground. It's going hunting. No shelter, even a subterranean one, can protect its prey from the deadly embrace of its loops. The thermal sensors on its muzzle have detected warm-blooded creatures at the end of this tunnel. The rock python has a particular fondness for rodents, which are easy to creep up on when they think they're safe underground. The python is a constrictor. It winds its muscular body around its victims, stifles them, and breaks their bones. It can gulp down prey larger than its jaws, which dislocate to accommodate it. A rock python can actually swallow a young antelope. With a few contortions, the prey slips into the snake's digestive tract. The rock python has a hearty appetite, but it can also go without food for an entire year. It won't be dieting today, though. More small animals are moving around, and it detects them with its heat sensor in the darkness. They'll disappear effortlessly down its throat. In the dawn's early light, before the hostile sun grows too strong, an adventurous naked mole rat steps out. The rats normally live their whole lives in the same community, but this one is what scientists call a colonizer, a rat who wants to found his own group and is prepared to perform an insane act of bravery to do so, setting out into the open where he is terribly vulnerable. For a creature his size, the trip is a formidable journey. But the young male is intent on finding a female willing to start a new colony with him. His sense of smell will lead him to a community of strangers.
Tonight. You have any idea how many candidates there were? They chose me. I've done everything they asked. I married the woman, for God's sakes.
Tell me what you know.
Best I can tell, their paths have crossed at key moments in the past 20 years. Quantico, Baltimore. She doesn't know and I can't prove it, but I believe Reddington was funneling money through the adoptive father for years. You know, I sat right next to Reddington once. I could have put a bullet in his head.
SEMA presents The Blacklist at 10:40 on Pearl. Our greatest discovery will become our greatest threat.
Caesar!
Rise of the Planet of the Apes on Pearl's weekend blockbuster.
一款面膜點會夠？你需要嘅係18款面膜 ，Fanco 面膜專家為切合不同肌膚需要，研發出18款不同面膜。呢個冬天帶嚟3D 修護滋養精華面膜，革命性3D 剪裁，膠原提拉緊緻，深潤去紋 ，Fanco 面膜專家。
Trivago finds you hotels for the best price. Just search where you want to go, and Trivago instantly compares prices from over 150 websites. With Trivago, you can be sure to find the ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
Hello， 我係 Roby。
全球超人氣嘅機械人 Roby 嚟咗香港啦！
你返嚟啦？
今日好攰啊！
辛苦晒啦！
每期都有不同安裝零件，組合超簡單。Roby 週刊創刊號特價49蚊，便利店、書店熱賣中。
Come paint the night in a whole new light at Hong Kong Disneyland.
啲錢擺喺身，硬係唔安心。
不如擺入個樽，
收埋喺天花。你唔好話呢句斯里蘭卡。人要擺喺我外家，咁我寧願擺入我冬瓜啦。
瓜咩瓜？亂咁嚟，擺喺銀行就安心啦。 存款有法律保障，最高港幣50萬，外幣都得嘅。你冇聽過香港有存款保障委員會嘅咩？
喺我有第2胎嘅時候，返到屋企以為自己冇事，當時我好擔心肚裏邊個 BB， 我老公即刻打俾 Louis， 佢好清楚我個 plan， 佢叫我哋放心。 醫生建議嘅治療都 cover 到㗎，我好珍惜今日有嘅一切。
英國寶城用心聆聽，更知你心。
Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Sorry, Patrick. Teresa can't come to the phone right now.
Red John is steps ahead.
Exactly how much does Jane know?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
BMWI presents The Mentalist Season 6 at 10:35 on Pearl.
Don't forget to join us for all the day's top stories in tonight's news roundup scheduled for 11:41.
His first task is to sniff out the chamber where the colony defecates and take on their group smell, the only way he may go unnoticed. Dizzy from the surface air, the explorer has to modulate his breathing. A mole rat's lungs are narrow and their blood is suited to absorbing oxygen from stale air, not the over-rich open air above ground. The adventurer reaches the latrines. He deliberately wades in the dung and adds his own urine to the mix while he's at it. On the other side of the colony, the king, who has the job of seeing off intruders, has sensed an alien presence. After a moment's hesitation, he slips into the hole that will lead him to the interloper. Suitably perfumed, the intruder prepares for a fight. If he wins, he will abduct a female and make her his queen in the new realm. The king arrives. A duel is now inevitable. The king seems to be in serious difficulty, frozen, paralyzed. Yet he can feel no pain. Naked mole rats lack a special neurotransmitter compound, so pain signals do not reach their brain. On this occasion, the colonizer's bravery hasn't paid off. He is forced to admit defeat and retreat. The king may think the threat is over, but his subjects have smelt the flood of aggression pheromones through the tunnels. Keyed up, they try to defy their ruler too. But the fighters are soon exhausted. They're too weak to topple the king. For subterranean creatures, danger often comes from above. If they're caught away from their hole, they have to race back. This aggressive, venomous baboon spider is in a hurry. The baboon spider is a formidable warrior. A female can grow to 18 centimeters across. The baboon spider attacks anything that looks like prey, but steers clear of anything inedible. The spider's home is a cozy nest dug in the ground and lined with web. The furnishing makes the lair comfortable, but it is also a trap. The spider lies in wait, hoping a visitor will soon come along. Its guest is a scolopendra, also a voracious carnivore. The wandering creature is out in search of small insects to gobble down. It doesn't realize another would-be diner is waiting for it to call. The spider readies its sensory organs, 2 main and 6 secondary eyes, and other organs able to analyze vibrations and the chemical makeup of the air. When it pounces, the predator injects its venom into its prey's body, along with a digestive juice that will dissolve the scolopendra's organs and flesh and part of its skeleton. All the spider will have to do is suck up the pre-digested liquid. The spider turns its abdomen up and swivels, stimulating the orifices that produce its silk threads. It then weaves a flap to close the hole. Some animals are taking shelter underground, as if sensing the arrival of the rainy season after months of drought. Water fills the soil, but most of the animals that populate the underworld have dug their holes away from the flood zones. Some creatures buried themselves in the ground during the dry season, and the return of the water signals their rebirth. This is an African bullfrog. It has spent several months in a comatose state, but is now emerging from its torpor, hungry enough to eat a zebra. It pounces on the first prey that comes within reach. Weighing 1.5 kilos, the bullfrog is strong enough to eat anything that will fit in its mouth. Not even a scorpion scares the African bullfrog. Scorpion venom is too weak to harm the batrachian. The scorpion only wins this time because its struggling makes the predator giddy. The mole rat colony's tunnels need constant inspection. They are the very arteries of the community. Soldiers patrol endlessly. An opportunist slips into the fortress. The intruder doesn't realize it will have to face champions of the animal kingdom, miniature superheroes with a powerful metabolism. Naked mole rats can handle hunger and thirst. Pour acid on their skin and they feel no pain. They have the longest life expectancy of any rodent. The scorpion's initial assault does it no good. Other fighters arrive on the battlefield. Their adversary doesn't know that the mole rats are members of a miracle species. They can't even be beaten by cancer. A mysterious mechanism limits chaotic cell division in their bodies. They're virtually invincible. The king has done his job, plunging his teeth into the scorpion's body. The corpse has to be removed. The mole rats use their rear paws as brooms to sweep the remains of the rash intruder towards the exit. As we saw a few months ago, the sky fell on the naked mole rats, but they all played their part in dealing with the catastrophe. Some dug, some fought, others gave birth. Each rat's work helped to further the will of the colony and achieve its single aim, survival. Yet, at the end of the tunnel lurks the naked mole rat's nemesis, light. Can the sentinels sense the nervous disposition of the zebras near the ground above the colony? It would only take an insect sting to stampede the herd, and the subterranean dwellers would again face the task of rebuilding their world.
Have fun, George.
Swarms.
How do you get tens of millions of individuals to work together as a team? It doesn't result in the chaos you'd expect.
We do it too. Next Tuesday, Ultimate Swarms at 9:30 on Pearl Spectacular.
三堆一爐即係3個堆填區啦，同埋一個轉廢為能嘅現代嘅焚化嘅設施。其實喺亞洲同埋歐洲先進嘅地方嘅例子話俾我哋聽，好多呢啲焚化設施唔單止可以處理廢物，亦都能夠轉廢為能，仲成為旅遊嘅景點，距離民居幾百米都冇問題㗎，一舉多得。廢物其實係我哋每個人產生嘅，所以我哋每個香港人都有個責任去處理我哋嘅垃圾。基建同埋減廢要一齊同時推行嘅。
Every Monday to Thursday, starting next week, the following, Season 2, on Pearl's Midnight Drama. Next on In Vino Veritas, the journey continues at Bordeaux and Burgundy. Also, what to do with your leftover wine. And the wines to go with innovative Chinese cuisine. Dalloyor Paris since 1682 presents In Vino Veritas at 9:30 on Pearl. Blancpain presents Marketplace is brought to you by Blancpain.
Welcome to Marketplace. Starting off with U.S. earnings news, McDonald's reported a 30% fall in third quarter profit as sales slumped for the fourth straight quarter. The world's largest restaurant chain said net income dropped to $1.07 billion or $1.09 per share. Revenue slipped 4.6% to $6.99 billion. Travelers said third quarter earnings rose 6% on investments and lower claims from natural disasters. The property casualty insurer said net income climbed to $919 million or $2.69 per share. Revenue rose 7% to $6.89 billion. United Technologies reported a 29% rise in third quarter profit amid rising sales in its jet engine unit. The maker of Black Hawk helicopters and Carrier air conditioners said net income rose to $1.85 billion or $2.04 per share. Revenue climbed 4.6% to $16.2 billion. In economic data, U.S. homes sold at their fastest pace this year in September, yet the housing market has yet to fully shake off a slowdown that began in the middle of 2013. And let's check on Wall Street now. The Dow is up 73 points. In Europe, stocks are soaring after the European Central Bank is said to be readying a plan to buy corporate bonds. The move could start at the beginning of next year, and although